पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम हरे हरे। हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। Now this is a song from Geetavali by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it's also called the Sriman Mahaprabhu Shatanama. This is like glorifying Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it goes like this. Nadiya nagar nitai niche niche gaay re, Nadiya nagar nitai niche niche gaay re, Nadiya nagar nitai niche niche gaay re, Nadiya nagar nitai niche niche gaay re। जगन्नाथ सुत महाप्रभु विश्वाम्बर, मायापुर शशि नवद्वीप सुधाकर, नादिया नगर निताय नीच नीच गाय रे, नादिया नगर निताय नीच नीच गाय रे। शचि सुत गौर हरि निमाई सुंदर, राधा बाबा कांति राजाति नट भर, नादिया नगर निता नीच नीच गाय रे, नादिया नगर निता नीच नीच गाय रे। नामानंद चपल बालक मातृभक्त, ब्रह्मांड वदन कार्तिक ताकि कौतुकानुरक्त नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे विद्यार्थी मूडूप चौर द्वयेर मोहन कैतिक सर्वस्व ग्राम्य बालिका क्रीडन नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे लक्ष्मी बोरदका उद्धत बालक श्री सचिरपति पुत्र शोक निवारक नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे लक्ष्मीपति पूर्व देश सर्व क्लेश हार दिग्विजयी दर्पहारी विष्णु प्रियेश्वर नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे आर्य धर्म पाल पितृ गया पिंड दाता पूरी शिष्य मध्वाचार्य संप्रदाय पाता नादिया नगरे नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे कृष्ण नामोन्नत कृष्ण तत्व अध्यापक नाम संकीर्तन युग धर्म प्रवर्तक नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे अद्वैत बांधव श्रीनिवास गृहधन नित्यानंद प्राण गदाधरेर जीवन नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे अंतर्द्वीप शशधर सीमंत विजय गोद्रुम बिहारी मध्य द्वीप लीलाश्रय नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे नीचे नीचे गाय रे कोल द्वीप पति ऋतु द्वीप महेश्वर जानु मोद द्रुम रुद्र द्वीपेर ईश्वर नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे नीचे नीचे गाय रे नवखंड रंगनाथ जानवी जीवन जगाय मादाय आदि दुर्वृत्त कारण नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे नीचे नीचे गाय रे नगर कीर्तन सिंह काजी उदाहरण शुद्ध नाम प्रचारक भक्त तिहारण नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे नीचे नीचे गाय रे नारायणी कृपा सिंधु जीवरनीयंता आदम पदुया दंडी भक्त दोष हंता नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य चंद्र भारती तारण परिव्रज शिरोमणि उत्तल पावन नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे अम्बुलिंग भुवनेश कपोटेश पति किचोर गोपाल दर्शन सुखियति नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे निर्दंडी सन्यासी सार्वभौम कृपा मोय स्वानंद आस्वादानंदी सर्व सुखोश्रय नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे पुरट सुंदर वासुदेव त्राण करता रामानंद सखा भट तुल क्लेश हरता नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय। बौद्ध जैन मायावादी कुतर्क खंडन, दक्षिण पावन भक्ति ग्रंथ उदाहरण। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे नीचे नीचे गाय रे। आलाल दर्शनानंदी रताग्रनर्तक, गजपति त्राण देवानंद उद्धारक। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे नीचे नीचे गाय रे। तुलिया प्रकाश दुष्ट पदुयार त्राण, रूप सनातन बंधु सर्वजीव प्राण। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे। वृंदावनानंद मूर्ति बलभद्र संगी, यवन उद्गारी भट भल्ल बेर रंगी। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे। काशी बासी सन्यासी उद्धारी प्रेम दाता, मर्कट वैरागी दंडी आचंडाल त्राता। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे। भक्तेर गौरवकारी भक्त प्राणदान, हरिदास रघुनाथ स्वरूप जीवन। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे। गोद्रुमपति गौर निताय जीवन, वृंदावन भाव विभोर अद्वैतेर दान। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे। गदाधर प्राण श्रीवास शरण, कृष्ण भक्त मानस चोर कलियुग पावन। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, भक्ति विनोदार पोदे रंग पाराय रे। नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय रे, नादिया नगरे निताय नीचे नीचे गाय। जय गौर निताय, जय गौर निताय, जय गौर निताय, जय गौर निताय। जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा, शिल प्रभुपदा। शिला भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय, सब आचार्यों की जय, षड गोस्वामियों की जय, शिल प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
हरे कृष्ण माता जी, जय राधा माधव।
You mean I sing Jai Radha Madhav? Sorry. Samta Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, go ahead, please. Jai Radha.
Jai Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunda Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunda Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Yashoda नंदना जय व्रज जनरंजना जय यशोदा नंदना जय व्रज जनरंजना जय यमुना तीर वनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी जय यमुना तीर वनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राधे जय राधा माधव राधा माधव श्री राधे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा श्रीला प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा श्री राधा माधव की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय
Prabhuji, you're mute.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lalita Priya Mataji. As always, with your such an ecstatic kirtana, it's really wonderful, so wonderful. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome back. So, yesterday we did lesson 2 and 3. Today we will do lesson 4. So before I begin, let's hear what we covered, a recap in lesson 2, 3, the highlights. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, invocation prayers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, sure. Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhavitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Now we'll offer a praise to Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratise Namah. O most beneficent incarnation, you are Krishna himself, appearing as Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden complexion of Srimati Radharani, and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer respectful obeisances unto you. Krishna Varnam Pisha Krishnam Sanga Pangostra Parshadam Yagna Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Sumedasa. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the God incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is associated with servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Nana Sastra Vicharnai Nipunau Shad Dharma Samstapakau Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuane Manyau Sharanya Karau Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Anande Namattaliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatana Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizing and studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are engaged and they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are engaged in the mood of the gopis and are serving transcendental loving service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayan Namaskritya Narom Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udira Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. Again, please accept my humble obeisances. Oh, Krishna Prabhupada. Welcome back. So, like I said, yesterday we did lesson 2 and 3. So, and today we will continue with lesson 4. And this lesson 4, beginning with that, we are going to hear some basic principles of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. But before I begin, let's hear the recapping of the highlights of lesson 2 and 3. Hare Krishna again.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad Pranam. Yes, we are going through Sri Jaiva Dharma, written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So we saw in previous session lesson 2 and 3, led by His Grace Charachandra Prabhuji. Nice Sri Chaurashtakam was sung by Her Grace Raksha Mataji. In the session, Prabhuji elaborated once again the recap of summarized Jaiva Dharma. So what is Jaiva Dharma? One who has life dedicated to Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is called as Jaiva Dharma. So as he said, all doubts will be solved. Siddhantas as well as philosophies, that is Sambandha, Videya and Prayojan. The book is summarizing Bhakti Rasamrut Sindhu and Sri Ujjvala Nirmani. So the fundamental of Naimittik Dharma and Nitya Dharma are elaborated. So there are 10 fundamental principles as per explanation of uh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is Dashamula Tattva. It has been elaborated. The importance of Harinam is mentioned. Rasa Tattva, that is transcendental mellows. Vaidhi Bhakti, that is Sadhana Bhakti and Nitya Dharma. Then Vaishnava behavior, material science, Nama Prad, Nama Pas, etc. All this will be mentioned in Sri Jaiva Dharma as per Sri Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Then this particular chapter or this book, it introduces the two characters, one principal character and one associated character. So the interesting philosophy, it is being presented in story format with these two characters, that is principal character and associated character. Here the place is also very important, where that is Sri Godrum Dham, where it is being demonstrated as per Sri Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So in this chapter 2, which is about the soul's eternal Nitya Dharma and temporary, that is Naimiti Dharma. So 6 themes were elaborated. The first, the location place, that is Sri Godrum Dham. It is situated in Jambudvipe, Bharatavarsha. Then the introduction of the principal character in story format as just explained. So it is Paramahansa Premadas Babaji Maharaj, and the associated character in this fictional story is also a learned scholar, Paramahansa, who is Mayavadi Sannyasi. So Babaji introduces this Mayavadi Sannyasi to his guru, Sri Pradyumna Brahmachari in Devapalli. Then Babaji reveals himself as Ranga Manjari and the sannyasi as Raman Manjari in Krishna Lila. And the last theme in this chapter 2, it was Babaji answers the questions of this sannyasi. The several questions, Prabhuji explained that in Bhagavad Gita, the way how Arjuna asked questions to Lord. Similarly, here Mayavadi Sannyasi is representing a common man, and the questions they are answered by this genuine scholar, Babaji. Here about the location, Sri Godrum Dham. The name itself suggested Godruma. Go, that means cow, that is also the Surbi cow, which is of divine origin, and worshipped Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here under this banyan tree. And this dham, it has been situated near Bhagirathi river as well as Jalangi river. So in Jambudvipe, Bharatvarsha, 9 islands, that is Navdvip Dham of Mandal, in that Sri Godrum Dham. So where it has happened as per the explanation. Then in this Godrum Dham, which is non-different from Nandagram of Sri Vrindavan Dham. So Pradyumna Kunja is there, and this Premadas Babaji Maharaj or Babaji was located. So here Babaji term, it refers to the sadhus or Vaishnavas and who belong to Raga Marga and do not wear the sacred thread. And these are Vaishnava followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Babaji is an initiated disciple of Sri Pradyumna Brahmachari, who comes in the lineage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who was at Devapalli. So Babaji is a learned scholar, have strong faith in scriptures, and daily used to chant 200,000 names of the Lord, and used to have Madhukari and used to interact with cowherd people in the village. So every day in the Nibha, Babaji used to offer the prayers, used to read Prema Vivarta of Jagadananda Pandit, which was written by Jagadananda Pandit. And so this was introduction of Sri Premdas Babaji. Then Babaji humbly meets the another learner, that is Paramahansa, that is Mayavadi Sannyasi, and he takes him to his Guru Maharaj. So, so the sannyasi in the Bhav, Babaji receives him, and this Mayavadi sannyasi is the associate character of the story format. So, Mayavadi sannyasi is brought up at Mayavadi school and used to study Vedanta and Upanishads, etc. And he traveled all the way at several dham. And now, since 12 years, remaining in the Shankaracharya lineage, attained the highest Paramhamsa stage of sannyasa. And now he has surrendered to Babaji. Uh, this one very fine day, surrendered himself to Babaji and interacted with him and tried to have inquiries with him so as to get answer. And so he surrendered himself to Babaji, the sannyasi, and asked a few questions like, what is the soul's true duty? Why do different teachers give different explanations of the truth of religion? If there is only one truth, why do the followers not agree in their opinions? And what is Vastu? That is a thing, it has been also explained. So, as we know, the constitutional position of the soul is to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. And because he is the marginal energy of Krishna and manifestation simultaneously one with and different. Achintya Bhedabhed philosophy, forgetting Krishna, the living entity has been attracted by the external creature from time immemorial. So therefore, the illusory energy that is Maya gives him all kinds of misery in his material existence. So Babaji begins answering with an explanation of the truth of religion and then what is Vastu or a thing. The original nature of a thing is its eternity, Nitya Dharma. So one who knows this true knows the difference between what is eternal, that is temporary, uh, and what is eternal. So, uh, so that is just like analogies given of water. As we know, the dharma of water is to be in the liquid state, as we do study in chemistry and all. And ice, that is a dormant state, etc. So, Nitya Dharma, the eternal nature of the water is to be in the liquid state. So, this particular analogy, it was explained. Then, what is Vastu or thing? Vastu, Vasa, Vasa, that is being derived from. And there's two kinds of Vastu, that is spiritual and temporary, that is those which are covered by Maya. So Vastu applied to three things existing in reality: the Supreme Person, the individual spirit soul, and Maya. So the knowledge of this relationship that exists between these three things is the pure knowledge. So post break session, so we saw that. So how Nitya verses, that is chapter 3, the Jiva's eternal nature is Nitya Dharma. So how uh, eternal, Vaishnav Dharma is eternal and the Jiva's position is eternal. So how such an atomic size soul, it has got the eternal nature, so be pure and perfect. So if the soul is created at some time, then how it is being considered as eternal? And isn't the state of deeply ecstatic spiritual love revealed by Lord Chaitanya different from the state of merging into the impersonal, that is Supreme Shankaracharya's proposed theory of impersonal monism? So it was so complex thing, but Prabhuji explained it so easily. The source to existence in this pure state as the servant of Lord Krishna. And in the impure state, there is a material bondage. It is so simple. These three different conceptions of the soul's nature, that is eternal nature, the temporary nature, and the nature that contradicts the eternal nature. So Babaji responded about how Shankaracharya is the incarnation of Lord Shiva and is a perfect Vaishnava Acharya. But just for um, to deny Buddhism, the soul's true eternal nature as well as the existence of Supreme Lord was covered temporarily and proposed Mayavadi philosophy. So he also explains that in impersonal liberation about Shankaracharya is silent. And after showing the true path, he did not reveal anything more about the secrets of Vaishnava religion. Then three things were told that which exist eternally: the enjoyer, the enjoyed, and the way enjoyment has been obtained. So um, it is the pure law of Krishna that is the only Vaishnava religion in a nutshell, the eternal religion of the soul, which is perfect, pure, and natural. So there is no reason why religion should be different from for different languages, countries, and people, although it may have different names. So Prabhuji explained it so nicely. And so we are so fortunate to learn this Vaishnava Dharma as per Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it has been explained. And the three divisions, yes, if the soul has originated some time back, but is not considered as material, and in the spiritual world, there are no past and future that do not exist, but the soul is eternal. And Vaishnava is the one who, without offense, chants the holy name. So it was explained in chapter second and third. And today we'll go for chapter 4 by His Grace Charichandra Prabhuji. Over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Nitya Sakhi Mataji. So beautifully recapping as always. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. So, and now, as I said, we will do lesson 4. And lesson 4 actually happens to be a part of chapter 3. So chapter 3 has 2, we will do in 2 lessons, lesson 4 and 5. So lesson 4 that we will try to do today. And the title of lesson 4 is this, shown here on the left side: the prime necessity of renouncing all illusory material designations in search of the absolute. And then lesson 5, the relationship between Varnashram Dharma and Jaiva Dharma, as prompted by the question of another visitor that we will see. Okay. So here is the lesson 4 outline. As you can see here, lesson 4 that is in this book that I'm following is pages 24 to 31. Actually, pages 24 to 40 is chapter 3. Lesson 3 is pages 24 to 31, and 32 to 40, that will be lesson 5. So lesson 4, as you see here, the prime necessity of renouncing all illusory material designations in search of the absolute. So in the lesson that we covered yesterday, and Nitya Sakhi Mataji just summarized the highlights, and this Mayavadi sannyasi, who is now become a very full-fledged Vaishnava sannyasi, and is greatly elated, So in that great excitement, ecstatic bhavas, he is actually experiencing some of the realizations, especially the spiritual realization of the Dharma, so that you see A and B that's inside. So let me blow out, that's in the next slide. So he saw, among others, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and the demigod king Devarshi, the king of the demigods, Indra. They are all glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's holy names and Sri Mayapur Dham. So that is what spiritual realizations he experiences. So here, what I've summarized, what is his realization in great elation. He already quit his Mayavadi sannyasa forms, and now he's adopting the Vaishnava sannyas form. So, right in one place that he saw in his visual realization, and turns out it's a momentary realization. And when that disappears, he becomes greatly, in a greatly become miserable about that. He wanted to experience and relish all the time. So here, what he saw in one place, Lord Mahadev, that is Lord Shiva, manifest a white foam playing. So in a typical Lord Vishnu's, Lord Shiva's form that we all know that in what form he exists, he has this drum called Dambaru, and he chants, "O Chaitanya, O maintainer of the universe, please be merciful to me." While dancing again and again, he finally falls to the ground. Okay, and then this sannyasi also has a simultaneous realization of another place in Mayapur, where Lord Brahma is offering his prayers while explaining all the Vedas. Now, they all recite some of the verses from scriptures, actually. So, in the assembly of the sages, is addressing Lord Brahma. So, he says this: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who disseminates transcendental enlightenment. Just to be in touch with him is to be in contact with the indestructible Brahmajyoti. So really, in a sense, what the sannyasi is having this visual realization, they are all, it's all about the spiritual realization of Mayapur. And when we talk about Mayapur, that is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's holy Dharma, So that is what they're saying, and they're glorifying that. Okay. So in another place, he also saw Indra. Indra is the king of the demigods, and he was also in a great ecstasy, chanting the glories of the Lord Gaurachandra, that is again Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and of course his associate, Lord Nityananda. So here also we are seeing everyone is intoxicated by drinking the nectar of Lord Chaitanya's holy names, because that is the main highlighting aspect. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave his greatest gift to the humankind is chanting of the holy name, what he calls Yuga Dharma. That's the only way we can become liberated. And ultimate goal for chanting the holy name is to develop love of Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually, he came as his own devotee. In the devotee form, he came that. So from the gardens in the four directions come sweet humming sounds, intoxicated by drinking the nectar of Lord Chaitanya's holy names. So that's amazing, actually. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is Krishna, non-different from that. And he himself is chanting the holy name, but that is, he is not different from Krishna, so as if he is chanting his own name, holy name. But we have to understand, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never ever claimed that he is Krishna. But we all know, and there's a very, very strict scriptural foundation that he's not different from Krishna. So this sannyasi, basically, he had this visual realization of that particular fact that we are seeing here, and the goddess of material nature fills every place with beauty and splendor. Oh, now that I see Sri Mayapur Dham, what can I not see? What do I see now? So he was really kind of greatly amazed by having this visual realization. But then he became uncautious because everything got disappeared. It was just a momentary realization. So after a moment, he again became conscious, and he could no longer have that particular realization that he was greatly elated. So obviously he is become very, very unhappy about that, and then he was weeping again and again. He recognized that it was all by the mercy of his guru, and he accepted Paramahamsa Prebadas Babaji as his guru, so in great elation, then he threw away the emblems of a Mayavadi sannyas form, that is Ekadanda, the wooden shaft that is called Ekadanda, as opposed to the Vaishnava, it's called Tridandi, threefold, in the water, Ganges water, and placed tulsi beads around his neck, kanthi, typical Vaishnava tilaka on his forehead, and chanted the holy name, typical, particularly Vaishnava in the Gaudiya line of Sampradaya, and very, very happily dance all around. So while, just a minute, okay. So now part C and D that is given here. Pardon me for. So part C, now Babaji declares the Vaishnava. So right around that time, when next day he meets Babaji, Babaji actually initiates him, the saintly sannyasi, as Vaishnava Dasa, and Vaishnava Dasa immediately renounced his Mayavadi sannyasi garment, name that we just saw that, and he also knew very well that was all by the mercy of his guru, but at the same time, all the assembled devotees, he became very, very greatly elated and gave the credit to all the Vaishnavas also by their mercy, that he now became a full-fledged Vaishnava sannyasi. So there now we are being told that there is another visitor appears actually, and who asks some very, very pertinent question, and Babaji actually declares that this Vaishnava Das, so that visitor was actually asking the question to Babaji. Babaji directs Vaishnava Das, this sannyasi, to actually answer this question, and we are going to, in whole this chapter and these two lessons, we are going to hear a very, very lengthy explanation of Gaudiya science, Vaishnava philosophy. Okay? In a great detail that is explaining fundamentals of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, beginning with what is Vaidhi Bhakti, what is Raganuga Bhakti, and the great thing that we are hearing here, that Babaji's contention that we must follow Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti first, because we are not yet purified. Unless until we purified of the influence of Maya, we cannot come into Raga Marg, the Raganuga Bhakti. But ultimately, we must come to Raganuga Bhakti, and then we also see the conditioned soul is under the bodily concept. So when we say why we should follow Vaidhi Bhakti first, because we are in material contamination, and typically in that form, this I and mind kind of we have a wrong realization of that. In that sense, in material contamination, the I means I am so and so. I'm Indian, I'm American, like that, I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor. So it's a misidentification of the self. And the mind, that this is everything he relates to his bodily extension, his wife, his children, his relatives, friends, and so on, like that. He said that is mind. But in reality, the spiritual realization of I and mind that we'll see later is that we are actually meant to serve Shri Krishna in the disciplic succession. And mind means Krishna is all mind. That is the kind of realization we should have, So, as Babaji was chanting the holiness, so now this is what I already just explained, in how such an ecstatic mood this Vaishnav was rolling on the ground and saying, today I have attained the dust of the Vaishnav's feet, because he is now actually initiated formally as a Vaishnava sannyasi now. So now, as I just told you, and the third visitor who appeared on the scene, and who is he? That is being shown here, that he was from Shantipura, nearby village, and he was able to read and write Urdu, so he was in a great association with the Muslim king, but he himself was a born Brahmana, actually. He could easily imitate and all the activities of the Muslim kings, but he himself was a born Brahmana, and he was kind of frustrated with worldly pleasure. So visitor began chanting the holy name and utilized his musical talent. He was a gifted musician, actually. So, and he was well, all the ragas and raginis, he was well versed in that. And he was chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord all over. Eventually, he came to Babaji's ashrama. And when he heard this Vaishnav Das Acharya, Vaishnav Das, and the sannyasi, in his saintliness, in great humility, as he was rolling on the ground and praying, all the devotees gathered there. So he was really greatly touched by that, but nevertheless, he had some doubts, and that was the reason he came there. So that was occupying his mind, actually. So with great boldness and eloquence, he placed a question. So now it's very important to hear what was his question, actually. As I told you, he was a born Brahmana. Nevertheless, he was associated with the Muslim kings, and he was well versed all the Muslim ways of their life, So here is this question, a very, very important question, and very, very probing question, actually. So he said that in Manu Samhita and other Dharma Shastras, it is said, so he was of the opinion of this Brahmana, supremacy of the Brahmana class, in the Vaishnava Varnashram Dharma. So it is said that Brahmanas are the best caste. In those scriptures are described the Brahmanas' regular duties. There are, we will see later on the 12 qualities of a typical Brahmana, which begin with chanting the Gayatri mantra. Typically, as we also, when we get the second initiation, we get second initiation by Gayatri mantra. But one important element here in our Gaudiya line of this, that we don't become Brahmana, this Gayatri mantra qualification, that we must first purification. So we must chant the holy name Hare Krishna Mahamantra for at least a year or more, as opposed to general that on a bodily designation born with that. So they are given this Brahmana mantra like that. So he was, this question of this visitor, third visitor, is that if these are the regular duties of the best caste, Brahmana, chanting the Gayatri mantra, then why are the duties of the Vaishnavas are different? Basically, that very probing question he had that, so he actually posed that question to, like I said, Babaji, but Babaji directs Vaishnav Das, this Mayasi, formerly a Mayavadi sannyasi, and now he become a full-fledged Vaishnava sannyasi. He must, he will answer that question of this third visitor, the singer, Brahmana singer, and everybody agreed that, all the assembled Vaishnavas. So that is what now we are going to hear, a very lengthy answer, and he begins with a general introduction of the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, beginning with Vaidya and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And he begins, as I just explained broadly, in a great details, but he explains that why we should first follow generally mass of people, okay, except a few very fortunate beings. We are not qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti. Why? Because we are materially contaminated. So we are not qualified to chant Gayatri mantra. Immediately we are not really Brahmana. So Brahmanas must be first be purified. And for that, the recommended path is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And there are three components. And I said many, many times that way. The three components are because our physical body must be purified of this material contamination, because we are under the influence of the three modes of material nature, and the way to purify is chanting the holy name Maha Mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now this is the way why this Vaishnava in the line of Gaudiya, we differ from those who are Smarta Brahmanas. Smarta Brahmanas, actually I just had that class that I cancelled, and we did this lesson 2 and 3. Originally I had planned to do it in 2 separate sessions, remember? But I had a social obligation. That social obligation was that I was invited to Brahmana thread ceremony of a young boy who was just only 16. This is a typical practice of Smarta Brahmanas. They initiate a young boy in the Brahmana initiation. So that is where our Vaishnava in the line of Gaudiya differs from that, that it is not based by birth, okay, but it is by the karma, guna and karma, as Krishna himself says, Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma, based on Guna Karma Vibhagasa. That is the why we differ from the Smarta Brahmanas. We are not born Brahmanas. By actually Guna and Karma we develop. This is how we became. So that is what it actually explains. He's going to, this particular Vaishnava Das is going to explain in great detail about that how this Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, that is how we purify, and we need to first qualify ourselves before we accept this Gayatri mantra. And the purification from what? Purification of this wrong conception of I and mine, on a material platform to come to spiritual platform. That is the particular matrix, how we understand that we become purified. And then we become qualified to chant Gayatri mantra and then Radhanaga Bhakti. So there are three broad categories of the soul's nature. Now we are going to hear all these things in great detail, of course. This is just the topics. So Vaishnadas Acharya, Vaishnadas Sannyasi, when the question was put forward by this third visitor, the singer Brahmana, he does not directly answer that. His question was directly, of course, that how this Brahminical qualification differs from a typical Vaishnava Dharma, so that is where he's going to begin with that. So he's going to explain three broad categories of the soul's nature, and the Vedanta philosophy also is going to introduce, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, to distinguish from the Mayavadi way of conception of Vedanta philosophy. So now it's a very lengthy topic, and it's going to continue in lesson 4 also. So before we begin, let's take this short break. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Is it,
Hare
I'm
Krishna.
for break time? Is it okay if I asked a basic question? Because I was watching the session yesterday on YouTube. I couldn't join on Zoom because it was morning time.
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
is it okay, Prabhuji, or should I wait for the end of the session?
Let's
It's
see if I
about-
can answer in this break time. But if I cannot, then I'll continue that. But please ask anyway.
Prabhuji, from the sessions and my reading long time ago, I understand that Nitya Dharma and Nainitika Karma, Nainitika Dharma are also part of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. It starts off from there.
Yeah. Now it's that requires a kind of lengthy answer.
Okay.
But as I begin explaining that thing, I will give you a broad, simple answer to that question.
Yes, Prabhuji.
See, what is the soul? Because we are not this body, we are spirit soul. And spirit soul's natural dharma, natural inclination is to be serve Lord Shri Krishna. Okay. But under the influence of some temporary situations, then we think that some other duties are outlined, and they think that these other duties are his dharma, but they are not the dharma of the soul, and that is called Naimittika Dharma. And the whole chapter is devoted to that we will see in this chapter 3, and that we'll do in 2 lessons. That now we are learning what is the natural duty, dharma, is this soul, for the satisfaction of the soul, that is called Nitya Dharma. The word Nitya in Sanskrit means eternal, whereas Naimittika is temporary. So that is a kind of a broad answer, but we are going to hear it in great detail. So just let's have a little patience and we'll hear that. And
Yes,
in a
thank
very
you so
lengthy
much.
answer, this Vaishnav Sannyasi is going to explain to us. Okay. The whole book is about that actually.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll wait
Hare
till
Krishna.
when we get to that point, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Haribol. the nice Lalita Priya Mataji, the nice practical example was given about what is the dharma, what is the characteristic of water, which is the liquid. Water can exist in three physical forms, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Liquid form is this natural form, and then there's a solid form is ice, or in gaseous form is water vapor, But this ice and water vapor is not the usual way the water exists. Water exists in the liquid form. That is his nitya dharma, the water's permanent characteristic. Whereas in temporarily, it may exist a solid as ice, but that is not really its natural thing. So in a corollary, like it is like a nemitika dharma,
Yes,
but
Prabhu.
those who see ice, they can mistakenly think that is his water. Does it always exist as ice or not?
Yes.
Or other way, or the water vapor, but they exist only in a kind of a special conditions. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
But in normal way, water exists in the liquid form. So when it is an ice form, so the water is there, but in a dormant form. Same in water vapor also, gaseous
Yes.
form. So
Yes.
that is by showing that analogy, there is what we understand how the soul, it's all what is its natural duty, typical, and that is this nitya dharma, is to serve Sri Krishna in devotional service. But when we are just like in a solid ice or gaseous water vapor, so here in the soul, when we are in material contamination, we think that is our natural duty. Like, so basically, all this thing is beginning to show example and trying to answer the question of this third visitor, because who was of the opinion, like Smarta Brahmana, the Brahmanas are the supreme, in a Varnashram system. And that is true in a Varnashram system. But Vaishnava Dharma is even superior to even Brahmana. And why it is so, the whole lengthy explanation that we are going to hear about that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, yes. So now he's going to explain why we should first follow Vaidhi Dharma, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. We must, sadhana means that is in practice. Okay, so we practice sadhana bhakti by our main goal is to purify ourselves of material contamination. And because of the material contamination, we do not have a spontaneous or natural inclination to develop the ecstatic symptoms of serving Krishna. So if we don't have that, how do we cultivate? So there's a potent process of cultivating that, and that is what calls Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. So in Shastra gives a definite way of how to do that. There's a procedure for that. Okay, like chanting the holy name, paying obeisances, associating with sadhus, and so on. Like that, there are 64 angas that we learn from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The English translation is Nectar of Devotion by Srila Prabhupada. So out of 64, there are 5 main items that beginning with chanting the holy name, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, all these things, just few examples like that. Deity seva, staying in the holy dham. These are the natural impetus how we can purify ourselves. So that is the way to do it. And so so materially contaminated senses, that those senses itself must be engaged in rendering this devotional service. Devotional service is rendered by bodily senses, and that's how we purify ourselves. Okay, and then because Shastra, there are built-in contradictions are there; they are context-driven. So we need a guidance from bona fide teacher, spiritual teacher, and that is our guru actually. Okay. So 3 things like first bodily senses must be engaged and engaged in accordance with Vedic injunction. That's the second component. Third component, that it must be done under the guidance of a bona fide teacher. Okay, so that is why the sadhana bhakti, and then we are qualified to chant Gayatri mantra to become Brahmana. So that is the normal way of doing it. But Smarta Brahmana is not following that trend. And so this third visitor was under the influence of the Smarta way of doing that thing. So he was given right from beginning that Brahmana is the supreme caste, and he was proud of being born Brahmana. So not by birth, but by gunas that we must become. And he was perplexed that why Vaishnavas are not following, and to answer this Vaishnava sannyasi is going a rather long way. He had to explain these very basic things. That is why we are going a long way. So it took the whole chapter to explain that. So now when we purify ourselves, when we develop spontaneous love, ecstatic symptoms we develop in serving Lord Shri Krishna, then we are qualified to do this Raganuga Bhakti. What is Raganuga Bhakti? Raganuga Bhakti means we follow in the footsteps, Anusharana, not Anukarana. We don't copy, but we follow in the footsteps of the Ragatmika Bhakta. Who are Ragatmika Bhakta? Who naturally have great love for Shri Krishna. And that is this eternal residence of Braja, Vrindavan, Gopis, the Gopas, Nanda Baba, Yashodamaya, and all those eternal residents who have natural inclination for Shri Krishna. So we follow in their footsteps. Those are Raga Atmika. Their Atma, very self, is having that kind of inclination, natural inclination. So Raganuga Bhakta, Raga Anuga, Raga means attachment, Anuga means following in the footsteps of these eternal residents who have natural inclination to have that kind of love. So that's what we are hearing here. Now that is slightly different from what we heard from the course we did, Mana Siksha, written by Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, where he said that why follow Vaidhi Bhakti and then follow Raganuga Bhakti. Of course, we understand we need to purify ourselves, but both could be done at the same time. That was his recommendation. Vaidhi Bhakti, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Both could be done at the same time. But here Babaji is not of that opinion, So that's the difference is there. And I thought it was important to point out that first, So it's a difference of opinion actually. So here that's what I explained, basic explanation, the difference between Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. The third component, unless and until one is purified from the influence of Maya by Vaidhi Bhakti, Babaji is against practicing Raganuga Bhakti. Why? So here's the reason, okay? Because of the soul bound by Maya, the Raganuga activities are extremely rare and difficult to attain. That's the first thing. Now, as I told you that over this weekend, yesterday, actually it's today, I attended this particular typical function of this Brahmana thread giving to a young boy, okay? So it is basically an indication that by birth is born in a Brahmana family, so it is assumed that he is already having Brahmanical qualities. It may be, but not necessarily so. So his young boy, he is just 16, basically one who is born in a Brahmana caste, like that, I think typical age is around 12 or so. So this boy, I attended the function, was given. Now, naturally, this boy still have no conception what is the Brahminical duties, and is given a Brahmana thread and is qualified to chant Gayatri mantra. So there is where our Vaishnava line of tradition differs from that, and our Vaishnava line is typically what Krishna recommends in Bhagavad Gita, that you are not Brahmana by birth, but you need to cultivate those qualities. Yes, if you are born, so your natural inclination, because you are born in that tradition right from childhood, you have that thing that is trained by that, but not necessarily by qualities themselves. So that must be cultivated, So that is the main difference. So here it says, because the soul bound by Maya, because we are born in ignorance, every one of us, when we take birth in material world, we are born in ignorance. So their Raganuga activities are extremely rare and very difficult to attain. This was one of the reasons given why Babaji's teaching is that we must first practice Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and not directly Raganuga Bhakti or in concert. So how will the souls attain auspiciousness? Then by what means will they? So how they do it, and what is the means by doing that? Okay. So that is what this Vaishnava sannyasi is explaining. He's going to explain in great detail. So under the influence of Maya, it's very difficult to remember Lord Shri Krishna. So when we have this selfish interest, we get distracted. Okay. So we have to really deliberately we practice Krishna consciousness. So the answer is how? By sadhu sangha, by associating with like-minded people who have that love for Shri Krishna. So sadhus, those saintly personalities. But however, what is the difficulty lies in that we don't have even natural inclination to associate with sadhus. A good typical example is given here that we learn from Prabhupada Lilamrita. Prabhupada, of course, was born a great Vaishnava by his Vaishnava parents and so on like that. But even then, when his friend, I think it was his friend's name was Narendra, So when he persuaded Prabhupada at that time, they were very young boys, okay, college boys, that there was a great sannyasi who was in the town visiting sannyasi, and he was going to give a great address that. So he wanted Prabhupada to come and attend that. And Prabhupada said, no, you gave typical reasons that I've heard many such so-called sadhus. I don't want to attend that, and some of us, we would give results. No, I got this party to attend, that party to attend. Oh, I have this engagement or that engagement. And we give several reasons. So the point here is that we don't, sadhu sangha is the right way. It's the recommended way. But we don't have a natural inclination even to associate with the saintly personalities, So that is what is explained right here. That answer is sadhu sangha, no doubt about it, but we don't have the desire, taste for hearing the Krishna Katha from sadhus, So it is only by the mercy and the compassion of Lord Krishna. So ultimately, that inclination to associate with sadhus actually comes from Krishna. So his mercy potency is flowing through this via medium of the saintly personalities. That we must understand, which flow through his confidential companions, confidential devotees, and the Vedic scriptures, and which may then arise in the heart of this embodied soul, who is initially is contaminated because of the three modes of material nature, conditioned souls. Okay, and because of those being conditioned by the three modes, those are the impediments that prevent us from associating with sadhus and then develop Krishna consciousness of purifying our soul of this material, this false conception of I and mine, that is not easy to get out of it. We have to forcefully associate with that. So as long as the embodied soul does not engage in Raganuga Bhakti, he becomes bewildered by the three modes of material nature. So now you see the result, why Babaji is of the opinion that we are not qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti if we still have been conditioned by the three modes of material, because those are the impediments that's going to prevent us. That is the main argument here. Okay. Whereas Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, in his Mana Siksha, he argues that both processes can be done simultaneously. Now we won't go into that discussion because we are following here right now. We are studying Sri Jaiva Dharma. So let's accept that what Babaji is saying here, and what Vaishnava Sannyasi is actually teaching, what he learned from Babaji himself. So that impediments must be removed first. Okay. So here much additional explanation why we must follow Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti first and then Raganuga Bhakti. We need to be qualified to practice that. Because this misconception of I and mine, and I've explained many times before, so let's do it once again. Under the false conception of I and mine, what is a false conception? Misidentification of ourselves, that I am not this body, I'm spirit soul. But in the wrong sense, that we identify that it's really basically on a bodily platform, that I'm American, I'm Indian, because we are born into those nations or those countries, that I'm Brahmana, I'm Kshatriya, and so on like that. So it's based on birth. Okay. So by extension, this I misidentifies self, that this, my son, my daughter, my wife, my friends, my relatives, my nation. Now, many people, they glorify of this great patriotism that this nation is mine. India, America, best country, everybody claim like it. But that is also in the light of this particular teachings that we learn, that is again also in a bodily platform, because because we are born in America or just because we are born in India, that don't necessarily give. Of course, being born in India, Shastra does say that only by some good deeds we are taken birth. But just because we are taking birth does not naturally give the license. We need to develop, we need to cultivate. It becomes facilitated because you are born in India because of good karmas in the past. So that is what we must understand. So, so there is a bodily sense. There's a wrong or misconception of I and mine. These are all mine because of the birth. And that must be transformed on a spiritual level. That I means I'm not this, that. I'm spirit soul. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. And my natural inclination, Nitya Dharma, is to serve Shri Krishna and his devotees. Okay. And mine means not this and that, and those things are mine. That this is my car, my house, like that. Mine means that Krishna is all mine, devotees are all mine, and I belong to them. That is the spiritual right kind of conception that we need to develop. And that, because those material way of concepting I and mine, the wrong misconception, that is going to prevent us to develop natural love for Krishna. So sort of three ways that is Vaishnava Sannyasi is explaining this bodily conception and so on like that. One called Sharirika. Sharir means physical body. So in relation to material bodies, if you think that, or Samajika, socially. Okay. this nationhood, this is all social, that I belong to this group or I belong to that group, is based on samajik or social way of being. Third is naitika, in the context of the ideas developed. So that third visitor who is asked the question, he was under that wrong platform. That was the reason he asked those questions. But nonetheless, he asked the question to remove his self-doubts. And that is the reason why this Vaishnava sannyasi is going roundabout way rather than directly answering. So it would not make sense, and also for our benefit, of course. This is the way it is given. So this condition of life is samsara. What is samsara? Samsara means this repeated birth, death, old age, diseases. In going through this translocation of the soul in 8.4 million species of life forms in 14 planetary systems, that we keep on doing perpetually, life after life after life, right? When we are not being purified to the three conditions, the three modes of material nature. So karmic reaction are there, and a variety of living conditions. This ultimately leads to translocation of the soul into this 8.4 million species of life forms. Sometimes we are human, sometimes we are in animal form, sometimes we are in insect form, or sometimes we are in this earthly planet, sometimes it's a different universe, sometimes we are demigods, sometimes we are demons, like that, So we continue, keep on going that, when as long as we have this material desires, material conditioning, that we need to purify of that. So those are the impediments to serve Shri Krishna. So there are three broad categories of the soul's nature. Now, this is also very important to understand properly. Okay, so again, this Vaishnava sannyasi is again explaining based on the Vedic scriptural authority. So the Vedas teaches us. What are the Vedas? There are three components of Vedas: Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. Karma Kanda is based on the fruitive activities, okay? Whereas Jnana Kanda is more on philosophical inclinations, and then Upasana is by serving in devotional way, bhakti process, So, but the large portion, almost like 85%, 75 to 80% is this Karma Kanda, fruitive way of doing. See all this in a different kind of Vedic homas, avanas, all this they perform. They don't really understand the why we are performing, why and how we ought to perform avanas. People have this misconception that if we perform this havana or this we perform this Vedic sacrifice, is to really, when we have this material desire, okay, I want to have a good job, let's perform this. Or I want to have a son or a daughter, like that. Or I have to have a good marriage and things like that. So when we have this selfish motives, and then we perform Vedic sacrifice, fire sacrifice, all this, then that's not the right way to do it, actually. That's the problem we have to understand. So many of these karma kanda kind of rituals have that kind of thing. Ultimately, to enjoy the greatest way while in this body, in this planet, and then ultimately after this life, when we go to the goal is to go to the heavenly planets. So enjoy even with great efficiency, to great intensity. That is the goal, but that's a misguided goal, actually. So, like I said, 75-80% of the Vedas is talking about this fruitive desires, karma kanda. Then there is a jnana kanda, philosophical explanation, description of particular Vedic siddhantas, and that is jnana kanda. Approximately about 10% of the Vedas deals with that, actually. And then upasana kanda is only 1 or 2%, no more than that. Is this performing devotional service? So that is what Vaishnava Das Acharya is explaining. So bewildered by the three modes of material nature, these embodied souls, there are three levels of existence, three ways we exist. When we are completely under this kind of misconception, I and mind complex, then we are totally bewildered. We are confused all the time. Okay, and then when we get a little bit more jnana, explanation from a philosophical way, then we come to a little bit enlightenment. Okay, that fruitive way of desiring is not ought to be our goal totally. Okay, and the jnana explains that why we ought to be like that. Okay, so that is means little bit enlightened. The bewilderment intensity is reduced to some extent. Yeah. And then we become fully enlightened. When do we get fully enlightened? When we understand, when we come to this upasana kanda, which is just barely 1 or 2% of it. Very few souls get to develop that. So upasana kanda is there in the Vedas, but it's a very, very minor component. Why it's so? Because we are grossly conditioned by the three modes of material nature. We need to first purify those. So based on these considerations, there are three broad categories of the embodied soul's existence or tendencies, inclinations. And what are they? Just like the three, karma kanda, jnana kanda, upasana kanda. So there's a karma kandi tendencies we have. Even though we may perform these fire sacrifices, but with the wrong way we are doing that, with the wrong tendency, wrong influence, like that we are doing. So that is called karma kanda. What is the right way of doing that? Karma yoga. So the same kind of karma kanda we do that, but with the goal, you direct that path through 85, but now for the pleasure of Shri Krishna. Whatever you do is for his pleasure. When we do that, there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita actually, anything and everything we do for his pleasure, then this fruitive desires gets purified eventually. So then becomes karma yukta, karma yoga. Yoga means linking ourselves, linking with the supreme. Then the karma kanda becomes karma yoga. Same way jnana kanda, just purely in a way, just we understand philosophy. That's not the way to do it actually. Instead of just speculative way of doing it, we follow the Shastra in the right way. So using jnana as the medium, via medium, then we connect with the Supreme. So then it's called jnana yogi, jnana yoga, the same way. Then the upasana also like that with devotional service for the pleasure of Shri Krishna, bhakti yoga, So this is how we purify those three ways. The yogas, the Vedas give. When you directly link, we introduce the component, the supreme component, supreme Lord for his pleasure, then we purify those natural, but the wrong kind of tendencies we have because being influenced by the three modes of material nature. So we gradually come from material platform to Krishna conscious platform. That is the yoga. That's called yoga ladder. So karma kanda, karma yoga, jnana kanda, also jnana kanda first, and then comes to jnana yoga, and then ashtanga yoga comes later, and then ultimately comes to bhakti yoga. But why follow this yoga ladder? We can directly practice bhakti yoga right from the beginning, and that is our chanting the holy name. It accomplishes all these objectives simultaneously together. So these constituted by the dharma or the rules of religion, which cannot be transgressed by the pravritti without committing sinful acts. Because when we have these selfish motives, even we understand this is not right, but because of Prabala. Prabala means tremendous selfish desires to enjoy materially. Then sometimes we transgress this Vedic injunction. Then it's called, it becomes vikarma. Karma means following under the guidance of the Vedic injunction. Then that is karma. But both have reactions. But there's a karma without reaction. We'll discuss that next weekend actually. And hence these three classes of people do not follow in reality, even though they appear to be following, but not properly, the right way. So now this Vaishnava Acharya, this sannyasi, is going to explain to us some Vedanta, the basic principles of Vedanta philosophy. Okay, we are not going into great details about it, but the basic principles of Vedanta philosophy, as explained by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And then of course the yoga ladder that I just explained to you. Manu and 20 other sages. So how the Vedic scriptures came into existence? Because this Manu Smriti that was mentioned by this third visitor, that's what he was quoting, that Manu Smriti, Manu Shastras, these are part of the Dharma Shastras. They explain that Brahmana class is the superior class. And he was identifying, he was quoting that, but we must understand. So this Vaishnava Goswami, Vaishnava sannyasi, is explaining the right way of understanding why the Dharma Shastra says that same, that. So that's what he's explaining. That yes, you are right. The Manu Shastra, the great Manu, who is Manu actually, by the way? Manu are the appointed by Lord Brahma. And there are 14 Manus in a given particular cycle. And the first Manu was Swayambhu Manu. And the Manu's job is to guide the people in the right way, actually, and each era, each yuga, there are 14 Manus are there actually. So in this present cycle, the seventh Manu is there, Vaivasvata Manu, that we are existing today under his guide. And they give the broad principle that we ought to follow. Okay. So Manu and the 20 other sages who wrote these Dharma Shastras to supplement the Vedic hymns to benefit those eligible to perform pious karmas. Then there are philosophers of logic to benefit those eligible for philosophical speculation. And then Gyanis. The great devotees wrote the Puranas and Tantras to teach those who wish to engage in bhakti. So Vaishnava sannyasi you begin giving a broad overview of that. And then slowly he's going to come to the main point. Why he's going the roundabout way? Because we should understand also the basic principles behind that. He's not answering directly the question of this third visitor. So in all the scriptures, the Uttar Mimamsa, that is a Vedanta philosophy, actually Mimamsa, the word Mimamsa means asking questions, pertinent questions, probing questions. It's clearly shown in Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita gives the essence of all the Shastras. The teachings of karma and jnana that ignores bhakti is atheistic way of understanding karma and jnana. The right way is to understand ultimately those ways, karma yoga, karma kanda ways, or jnana kanda ways, kanda, that is the rituals that must be first directed through bhakti. Then there's the right way of connecting that. Yoga means to connect. Connect with what? Connect with who? Connect with the Supreme. Then they become purified. Jnana kanda, karma kanda becomes karma yoga, Jnana Yoga, like that. It must be connected, linked to Bhakti process, ultimately to come to Bhakti Yoga. So that is the way Vaishnavas describe the Vedic teachings. If we don't follow that, then we may have a misconception of the Shastras. The third visitor was quoting Shastra, but he did not understand the proper way of understanding the scriptures. So that is the reason why he's going this way. So Karma Kanda must be above Karma Kanda. The next upper ladder is Karma Yoga, then come to Jnana Yoga, then ultimately come to Bhakti Yoga. So that is the yoga ladder. Okay, so that now we are going to continue, of course, in the fourth lesson, and the whole book is about that. But this is the way the Vaishnava Das Sannyasi is going to answer. So in the fourth lesson, then we are going to really get the direct answer to the question this third visitor was asking. Why? Because he was under the impression the supremacy of Brahmana class, but that is not really the correct way to understand. Brahmana is no doubt in the Varnashram Dharma, is on the top, but beyond Varnashram Dharma is this Vaishnava Dharma. Because that was his question. He said that this Shastra's quote, Brahmana class is the supreme. So his question was why Vaishnavas are not following that Siddhanta, that principle. So this is the way why Vaishnava Das Sannyasi is explaining why it is so ultimately is going to come, that we will see in the next weekend, the fourth lesson, that why the Vaishnavas are superior, but they are beyond even the Vaishnava, this typical Varnashram Dharma. That Varnashram Dharma must be followed in that sense. Then this Varnashram becomes Daivi Varnashram, the right way, the divine way to understand Varnashram Dharma. Not by birth, but cultivating at particular qualities of Brahmana, Kshatriya, and so on like that. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I took quite a bit part of it because it was very important that we understand these lessons in the right way. Hare Krishna. Okay, it's open for discussion. And again, my apology.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Actually, this is like a mystery novel, like Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakurji is building up that momentum for us to understand the basics of duty of eternal duty of a jiva, like of a soul. Very interesting. I mean, like I can sit for hours together and hear this. I'm just looking forward to the next classes until, I mean, there's no end to it. But I understood what you meant by the Nitya Dharma of water is that the corollary that you explained is the fluidity of water. That is by nature, the water flows. Water's characteristic is to flow. Just like our soul's characteristic is to perform the eternal duty to be blissful or happy. The real happiness, basically, not the material or the so-called happiness that we all looking for in the material world, which is temporary somewhat. I'll wait for the future lessons to understand more about it. I'm still thinking about my question.
No, the question that you asked about the Nitya Dharma and Naimitya Dharma, Nitya is the eternal Dharma. Naimitya is a temporary, particular time, place, circumstances based on that. So it is temporary then only in those considerations. But this question is so broad, the whole book, these 40 chapters are devoted to answer that question, what you're asking, So in a simple way, you cannot answer that. You have to understand. So before we understand that, the way the author, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, is developing that particular story format is just for the particular that purpose. If it directly had given the philosophy, it would have not have made sense. So that's why these fictional characters were introduced, is to build a particular kind of medium so we can properly understand. And remember, the whole book is all about that question that you asked, 40 chapters that we will do in 48 lessons. So gradually, one by one, the different layers and layers that we are going to or go through that to understand that basic question. Why water exists in liquid form? That is a natural way, okay? And the solid form as ice, or in gaseous form as water vapor, they are a temporary manifestation of the water. They do not exist all the time like that. The Sai Dharma, that is like that actually,
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So
May
we
I
have to
ask-
be.
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
please go ahead. No, please ask. Yeah.
May I ask another question? Maybe it is related because this topic is very vast. So when we say Vaidhi Bhakti, which is, or the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, even Raganuga is Sadhana, it's mentioned as Sadhana Bhakti, both are Sadhana Bhaktis.
Yes.
So when we say sadhana means which is we are practicing, so Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, so that encompasses both Nitya Dharma and Naimitika Dharma, because we are trying to get to the Nitya Dharma, we are not yet there. So like how do we, it's again a broad question. So okay, I'll wait, Prabhuji, sorry.
No, Vaidhi means what? Literally it means rules and regulations. That's called Vaidhi. Vidhi means the ways of doing things, proper way of doing things. So by particular rules and regulations dictated by Vedic injunctions, that's called Vaidhi. Sadhana means practice. By practice, you develop, cultivate what you want to develop, Whereas Ragana, to form an attachment, you don't form attachment to someone just like that. You have to understand the person with whom you want to develop attachment, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
We may have a natural liking for a particular person because somehow or other in the past lives we might have interacted with that personality. Sometimes, in our way of life, sometimes we meet a stranger, sometimes we have a natural liking for that person before even we know that person, or sometimes we don't like that person, even we don't know about him at all, but somehow there's a repulsion is there because in the past lives we interacted with that person in a given way, So these rules and regulations are meant to change our perspective, because our perspective presently is being colored by the three modes of material nature. So, and the three modes of material nature give the wrong conception or misconception. And to correct that, we have to follow the rules and regulations of the Shastra. The Shastra is ultimately the manifestation developed by the breath of the Supreme Lord. That's how the Shastra came into existence. So when Krishna sends us in material world, he tells us, guides us how to properly conduct ourselves. There's a right way of conducting ourselves and the wrong way of conducting ourselves. The three modes of material, the Maya, when we have selfish motives, selfish goals, then there's a wrong way. The right way is to somehow or other connect through the process of Krishna consciousness. So that's why we have to follow this. Vaidhi means, literally it means rules and regulations. And Raga, attachment, we develop the attachment either spontaneously because in the past lives we have done that, or by practice. So practice means we may have a natural inclination, but still we need to know that person in a great details. Then we develop the natural attachment for that person.
So thank you,
So
Prabhuji.
that's called Raganuga Bhakti. So we follow the examples. we follow in the footsteps of somebody who already have natural inclination, natural attachment for Shri Krishna. So, and that is their very soul, the Ragatmika Bhakta, the eternal residents of Vraja or Vrindavan, they have this natural inclination because they descend directly from Golok Vrindavan Dham. They are the eternal associates of Shri Krishna in Golok Dhama. So when Krishna comes, he does not come alone. He comes with entire entourage. All his devotees, his Dharma also comes with him when he comes to the material world. And they are the ones who guide us on the proper path.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I
So
slightly
there is a Shastra is there, but to understand Shastra, because the built-in potential, we need a bona fide spiritual teacher.
yes,
An
Prabhuji.
important element. We have to engage our bodily senses and the mind. All the 10 senses, the 11th is the mind. Mind is also like in that way, is called sometimes called 11th sense. So
Yes,
all
ma'am.
these things must be engaged in that process.
Yes,
Hare
ma'am.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. So the Nitya Dharma,
Thank-
the Nitya Dharma, so by following the do's and don'ts, the regulations of Vaidhi
Yes.
Bhakti, as per Shastric injunctions, we
Exactly.
eventually, I mean, we know we have even in terms of doing devotional service, each bhakta has got some certain inclination to perform certain service in devotional practices. Like supposing a bhakta or bhaktin who is doing kirtan, or a bhakta or bhaktin who is very good in cooking, they have a natural inclination. Their swabhav
Exactly.
serve in that role. So I mean, in terms of the devotional service and after following the do's and don'ts, the Nitya Dharma is revealed to us, or is it only the 16 rounds, minimum 16 rounds of chanting and doing, Brahman initiated, doing the Gayatri 3 times a day? So these are only Nitya Dharma. These are as per the do's and don'ts of the Shastric injunctions that we follow, do's and don'ts of Vaidhi Bhakti. But isn't Nitya Dharma the eternal duty or the role or the devotional service or the inclination in bhakti that we eventually will know based on when Guru reveals one's Siddha Swarupa?
Now, see, that's what I'm telling you. Because you invoke this inclination, tendencies, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
The inclination could be right way of doing things or wrong way of doing things because of our previous conceptions. Because see, we lived before also many lives, right?
Yes,
So
Prabhuji.
sometimes because of the previous conceptions, previous experiences, we have developed certain tendencies. Okay, so sometimes the right kind of tendencies are there, right inclinations are there. Sometimes there are not so right way of doing things. Okay, because of the previous experience. So we have to develop the right way of doing things. This process is given that this what we are talking about. So what is a natural that we perceive this is what we ought to do, but that is colored by influence or influenced by our previous experience, previous exposure. So that if it is a wrong way of doing, we need to correct that. And Vaidhi Bhakti rules and regulation that help us to develop the right kind of inclinations. Okay, if we have already right kind of inclination, then that help us to strengthen the right kind of conceptions. If we have a wrong inclination, then it corrects us to develop the right way of doing things. And by these rules and regulations given in the Shastra, and we must engage ourselves. Ourselves mean our bodily senses. The soul is under the influence of that, so we need to cover. So then becomes Nitya Dharma if we are doing the right way of doing things. But when we are colored, when we are influenced in the wrong way, and we think that that is the right way, okay, then that is called Naimitika Dharma. That we mistakenly think that this is the right way. Okay, this third visitor was under this wrong conception that just because I was born in Brahmana family, that I am the supreme, I am so and so, I am superior to other people, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and so on like that. Many, even in India, today's India, they think that they are born as a Brahmana. They think they are superior, but not necessarily so, because that is based on a bodily platform. By birth, they think that. But there's not so many Brahmins, we think that they are not following, they don't have a Brahminical qualification. And Bhagavad Gita gives that, the 12 qualities of one who is genuinely Brahmana, they must have these 12 qualities. We will, the next class, I will show you that and share with you what are those 12 qualities, next subsequent classes. So when we think a particular dharma means duties and so on like that, our prescribed duties, prescribed. If you are Brahmana, then these are the qualities you ought to have. If we don't have, then we are not truly a Brahmana. Okay. So this Vaishnava teaches us the right way of conducting ourselves. Okay. So this Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, they are actually on a material platform. The Varnashram Dharma typically is on a material platform. In fact, remember that the series of question and answer takes place between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai, the dialogue taking place. The first question he asked about that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu deliberately asked this question to Ramananda Rai. When that issue came, Varnashram Dharma, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not agree with that. Then he prompted him to go more deeper. Then Ramananda Rai explains further, why Vaishnavas are superior, because this typical Varnashram Dharma is a recommended way of behaving ourselves. That's true, but we have to properly understand that. So when we properly understand Varnashram Dharma, then we understand material platform, the spiritual platform. And when a Varnashram Dharma on a spiritual platform, it's called Daivi Varnashram Dharma. So Vaishnavas follow that. We also follow actually particular Vaishnava Dharma, even because that gives our natural tendencies. Some of us, we naturally have kind of a superior intellect and things like that for teaching or conducting classes. Those are that, okay? But some of them are very good in administration, temple managers, temple commanders. They have natural way of leading someone, something, then they are given those kind of duties. Some are actually in a kind of a, like good in business, or some are very good in conducting this, in a commercial way and things like that. Then they are given that kind of duties in the temple actually, like temple management. So that is a typical Vaishya Dharma actually, tendency for that. And some are just typically work oriented, cooking in the kitchen and so on like that. Now, Lalita Priya Mataji is very good, giving a natural talent, gifted singer, gifted musician, So whatever so in true sense, nobody's inferior, nobody's superior actually. They're all different way to serve. When we convert in serving Krishna, then they're all one and the same. You sing very nicely. So by that way, by your musical talents, you serve Krishna, you please him and his devotees. Some of us like me, I don't even know how to play Kartala. I'm so, really totally ignorant. I don't have the talent, but Krishna has given me this talent to study Shastra, and whatever the way I understand and realize, I share with all of you, okay? And some are very good in technological aspects. See, Sanjeev Prabhuji is a great devotee, but he is very well trained professionally in this IT technology. He is the one who introduced me to conduct these classes online some 25 years ago. He taught me that, and he actually carried out that process, and we have night kirtan group. You are all gifted that. So that is the way to do it, things in a proper way. And we are not proper way doing, then we need to cultivate that. And there are potent ways how to cultivate that. That is what we are following. So right way of doing, right way of understanding, right conception, that is our Nitya Dharma. That is the way how we ought to do it. But we are not doing that way. And we think that is a proper way, misconception. So that is Naimitika Dharma. And that is that improperly doing things in a temporary that sense, that we think that is our duty, but that's not our true duty. That becomes Naimitika Dharma. The whole process, difference between a Nitya Dharma and Naimitika Dharma of the true function of the soul, that is the main goal of this entire book. The author, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is giving this thing, and that is why this in a very detailed way, this book is kind of composed with 40 chapters, is by stepwise manner that we are being taught what is Nitya Dharma and what is temporary Dharma. And temporary Dharma is because not only just temporary in nature, but improper. Okay? And that must be given up and cultivate the true way of conducting ourselves. Nitya Dharma. The soul becomes happy, naturally happy, if we are doing that. And natural happy means everything we do for the pleasure of the Lord, then that's the right way. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I'm repeating myself in a redundant way, but there is a reason for that. And the book is also giving in a very repeated way, sometimes to emphasize a certain point from a different perspective, from different angles. You explain the same thing, then it makes more sense. Hare Krishna. Sanjeev, Sharat Prabhuji, my deepest apology. We don't have much time, but if you want to say something in just about 2 minutes, and of course you'll have more opportunity as subsequent classes, but in 2 minutes if you can say something. No?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Actually, there is much to be said. Just I want to say a few things only. Regarding the first thing was the difference between Brahmana and Vaishnava. I request devotees to read a book of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur entitled Brahmana and Vaishnava. Actually, there was a debate on this subject in the year 1911, and in which Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in 3 days, he had explained about this. There is no time to explain today because of time constraint. If you get time, you should read. Then regarding this Nitya Dharma and Naimittika Dharma, there are certain other expressions such as Nitya Karma or eternal unmotivated spiritual duties, Nitya Tattva, the eternal spiritual principles, Nitya Satya, or the eternal truth. These are to be used to describe the living entity's pure and transcendental state of consciousness and should actually not be used for another purpose. That means there is a chance people can get confused with this. There are so many terms like Nitya Karma, Naimittika Karma, then Kamya Karma, Prayaschitta Karma, Vihita Karma, like this. There is no time to discuss or explain. But in just 1 or 2 minutes, I want to say Nitya Karma means by doing so, no punya. Only the defects get rectified, as in Sandhya by a Brahmana, like in some Vaishnava Sampradaya, not in Gaudiya Vaishnava. they do Sandhya thrice in a day. If somebody does it, then the defects get rectified. If not done, then the defects would still remain. Then one may ask, then what happens in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya? Because since we are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and following the regulative principles, that takes care of. Then the Naimittika karma, like taking bath during an eclipse like this, or taking bath in Ganges, if done, then you obtain punya, and if not done, then you incur sin. This is what is being said. Then kamya karma, prayaschitta karma, all these things, if we have time someday, we can discuss about that. But please don't get confused. These are, I spoke of karma, but we are now talking of the Nitya Dharma and Naimittika Dharma. More of it will be discussed in subsequent classes. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Sharma. Thank you very much. So because we are already over 5 minutes to shoot, so I'm going to request directly Sagar Prabhuji, if he is there, to conclude the class with mission of prayer. Very bold.
Okay. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obsession. All go to Srila Prabhupada. Namaste Narasimhai. Namaste Narasimhai. Prahlada Dahini. Prahlada Dahini. Hiranyakasi Purvaksahar. Hiranyakasi Purvaksahar. Shilatankar Nathali. Shilatankar Nathali. Ito Narsingha, Parata Narsingha, Ito Narsingha, Parata Narsingha, Ito Yami, Ito Narsingha, Ito Yami, Ito Narsingha, by Narsingha, Hriday Narsingha, by Narsingha, Hriday Narsingha, Narasingha Madin Saranam Prapade, Narasingha Madin Saranam Prapade. Tava kala kamala bhari nakhadbhuta singam dalita hiranyakashipur tanu bringam kesavadita narhari rupa jai jagadish hare jai jagadish hare jai jagadish hare tava kala kamala bhari Nakadbhuta Singam Dalita Hiranyakashipur Tanu Bringam Kesavadita Narhari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare नरसिंह भगवान की जय भक्त प्रहलाद महाराज की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय चारु प्रभु की जय शरद प्रभु की जय गुरुदेव की जय all assembled devotee ki jayos. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Char Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much, Sagar Prabhu. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Hare Krishna. All glories to all the devotees. Hare Bol. So remember, this discussion will continue. Even just see the example here. The answering to that question, the third visitor, Vaishnava Sannyasi, such a long way of answering is doing for a given purpose. Because we have to understand all this basic concept before we understand that, So we are going to continue, and please have patience, okay? Lot of questions, doubts will be removed eventually. And the whole book is all about that. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the wonderful, blissful week ahead. And we will meet next weekend, lesson 5, 6, and 7. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Jaiva. Thank you, Sarat Prabhuji.
Hare
Namaste.
Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavati Pranam.
Haribol. Thank you, Badal Prabhu. Thank you very much, Sharad Prabhuji. And again, my deepest apology. Today I went over. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much.